Hello, this is Bane. I was asked to read the My Little Pony fan fiction Pinkie Pie Watches Paint Dry. It's I haven't read it before. And yeah, I'm gonna read it now. Here we go. The room had been orange, and now it was not. Pinkie Pie could not wrap her head around it. How very, very easy it was to change the identity of a thing simply by changing its color. Whether it was willing to be changed or not, what had once been an orange room was soon to be the pink room. It was simply a matter of waiting for the paint to dry. And once it did, there would be no going back. Together, they reached the point of no return. And once they crossed that threshold, nothing would ever be the same. There was nothing the walls could do about it either. They had no say in the matter, and she had been the one to do it to them. She had been the one to steal the room's very identity. After all, once upon a time, her loft her cube corner had been painted orange. It had been the orange room now. It was not. Soon, it was going to be pink. And then, it would be pink room. And all her memories of the orange room would fade into obscurity with time. What had been defined by its uniqueness was being assimilated, falling into place along with everything else. After all, everything she owned was pink, and soon her bedroom would be no different. What did that say about her fleetingness of individual when something as simple as a can of paint could change the very nature of a thing? When the mere color could change what a thing is for its very core. For a room that is no longer orange could no longer be called the orange room. The room would become something else entirely. Even if she painted it over once, the pink had dried in order to try and recapture the orange, she was quickly finding herself missing. It would never again be simply the orange room. It would be forever known as the room that had once been orange and then was pink and now orange again. And Pinkie Pie didn't know if she was able to remember a name that long. Even an acronym, TRTHOBOATWPANWOA, was too long for her liking, and she doubted whether even her sharp mind would be able to keep track of that many letters. She stood in the middle of the room, her coat and mane covered in flecks of the stuff. Lying off to the side, abandoned and forgotten, there now lay 2 empty cans of paint, a pair of brushes still coated with fresh paint. Her furniture had been covered in protective tarps before they had begun their task. There had been nothing in place to protect those poor walls. Perhaps Pinkie Pie mused, because painting the walls had been the entire point of the exercise in the first place, rendering such tarps unnecessary and unhelpful. Pinkie took a step forward, both outstretched, and gently placed it against the closet wall. The paint was still damp, having not yet dried enough for the permanent. That meant that the orange room was in limbo. No longer orange, true, but not entirely pink either. That could be changed in what meant that choice was hers. If she let fate run its course, was it more merciful to end this transformation now, removing the paint while it was still wet and hopefully easier to do so? Or would it be kinder to see the process through uninterrupted and allow her precious bedroom to become what it would indefinitely become, pink like everything else she possessed? Was it too late? Had the damage already been done? Was such an irrevocable seeping into the very nature of the walls themselves? Perhaps the walls no longer viewed themselves as the orange wall. Perhaps they grudgingly accepted their destiny as pink walls. It would resent for her altering them any further if she chose to do so. Pinkie Pie wanted to make errands, but she didn't know how. She didn't know how to make it up for the four walls. After all, she had already changed them too much, had already stripped them of their identities. If she went any further, what would become of them? If pain had such power, then what could it do to her? Wide-eyed, Pinkie Pie examined the bright pink like the rest of her, but was now streaked with pink paint as well. If pink could change the very essence of a thing, what it would have done to her if the paint had been green, or blue, or burnt sienna instead of pink. It had been a fortunate coincidence that she happened to be her own favorite color, or that she would forever be grateful that she had been the case. She couldn't even begin to imagine what would have meant. If the paint she'd chosen had been any other color, then accidentally becoming covered in it would have changed her, just as the four walls surrounding her had changed. She wouldn't have become Pinkie Pie covered in pink polka dotties. The way she was now, she would have been polka dotted, almost pinky, but not quite. She would have been proper Pinkie Pie at all. If she'd stained blue, and it wasn't necessary pinky, then it would be a static thing. It wouldn't be so easy to change or disguise. Then who was she? If she wasn't full-blooded Pinkie Pie, and she didn't know who she was at all, she certainly couldn't be a bluey or a greenie or a burnt sienna-y. She had been Pinkie Pie all her life, after all, and she was exceptionally good at it. Being Pinkie Pie was all she'd ever known, all she could trust herself with, all she wanted. She couldn't bear the thought of some forced change claiming her identity. But wasn't that with her she said, messed up there. What was I? Oh yes. But wasn't that what she herself had done to the Orange Room? She had taken it upon herself to change it, potentially against its will, for the better. She had believed at the time, she was now quickly coming to regret it. But perhaps all she'd done was steal its identity, and force a new one upon it, one that had no option about it. The Orange Room was no longer the Orange Room. Pinkie Pie might no longer be Pinkie. It all took a change and thing in such a way was a simple can of paint. Almost hesitantly, Pinkie Pie once again touched the drying pink paint, only to find that it was no longer wet to the touch. It was too late then. The deed had been done, and the Orange Room was gone forever. In its place, there was nothing but pink. See? I told you it was being weird. How long had she been standing there? Rainbow Dash and Twilight Sparkle stood at the entrance of Pinkie Pie's room, watching her in eye-wide fascination. Well, Twilight was at least. Rainbow was scowling. I don't know, almost an hour, I guess. She wanted to paint her own, so I said I'd help, and we started painting. Then suddenly she started just staring at the wall, looking scared, saying stuff like, "What have I done? What have I done? I'm so sorry," and acting all crazy. And then she started doing this. But are you sure she isn't just being Pinkie Pie? Twilight ventured. From her perspective, all she could see was the pink pony standing perfectly still in the middle of the room, a glazed look in her eye, as though she were deeply lost in thought. That would have been an alarming enough ordinary circumstance, but with Pinkie, it was especially so. Pinkie Pie wasn't exactly the kind of pony to prone to bouts of deep physiological thought, and the unicorn had to acknowledge just seeing her in the midst of such contemplation and tad worrisome. Pinkie Pie doesn't act crazy like this. Pinkie Pie acts crazy by jumping around and talking about random stuff. Since when does she get all moody? There was a brief silence while the two of them watched their friend continue to stand perfectly still. She might not have even been breathing. They had no way to tell. There was nothing in her stance to give it away, and from their position, they couldn't see whether her chest was rising and falling or not. She was like a statue. Just you wait. Her hair's gonna go flat and she'll start talking to rocks any second now, Rainbow Dash muttered, rather darkly after a moment of this. Why was she apologizing? I have no idea. Once she started crying after eating a cupcake because she missed it. Maybe she feels bad about painting the walls? That's silly. So what do we do? Dash asked again, peering through the doorway at a sturdily tragic figure in the mournful Pinkie Pie. Alone, except for the alligator ended going on her tail with vacant eyes. The alligator, though normally borderline chaotic and gifted with dubious levels of sentience, was currently more active and lively than his normal energetic mistress. I'm not sure, Twilight confessed, scratching her head and frowning. She liked to believe that she was the rather intelligent, but even she had to confess that Pinkie was an enigma. Nobody ever knew why she did the things she did, let alone how to make her stop. If Pinkie Pie had decided to stop being a whirlwind of pure energy and instead fall in some strange state of melancholy, who was she to judge? Looks like she's having some kind of overly introspective internal monologue, but I can't really tell. What? What kind of egghead are you? Aren't you supposed to be good at fixing this kind of thing? Twilight shrugged helplessly, and Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes before stomping away. She could have easily flown downstairs, but she seemed determined to make such a noise as possible in order to emphasize just how fed up she was. So she stormed down the steps, shaking the entire house. Wow, she must be fat or something. For a minute or two, Twilight remained at the door, watching her friend somewhat curiously. She was yet to solve the puzzle of Pinkie's existence. And this was just another mystery regarding her strange friend, but like all intellectuals, she knew how to pick her battles. Pinkie Pie was a case she may never solve, and there would be no point in straining herself. So try. I cannot talk for some reason. Well, I'm nearly done, I think. Yeah. So instead, she would observe and see what she could learn about Pinkie Pie's currently curious state of future reference. She wasn't entirely clear on why Rainbow Dash had come to her help, but the arrogant comment made her suspect that the Pegasus had thought she'd know a spell to snap Pinkie Pie out of this unprotected lunacy, or something. But the stupor, the pink pony was in a almost hypnotic. Seeing the normally spastic baker so subdued for once had strangely relaxing effect, and Twilight almost didn't want it to end. Truth be told, it was peaceful. She was a murderer. At least, if Orange Room had been an actual pony instead of a studio apartment, his blood would have been on her hooves as a result of what she'd done to him. Only in this case, it wasn't blood. It was paint. Actually, maybe that didn't work. If she had stripped the old orange paint rather than just paint over it, then the old paint might have been the blood of the room. Then the metaphor would have worked, since the paint on her hooves was new paint. It was like she'd given Orange Room new blood, rather than shedding its old blood. So instead of having him murdered, it was like Pinkie Pie gave him too much life, and it overwhelmed him. It was unbearable liveliness. Yes, that's what it was. Rainbow Dash barreled past Twilight Sparkle in a freshly painted room, knocking aside Gummy, the alligator, so that she could shove a cupcake into Pinkie's face. Cupcake! She said fiercely. Look at the cupcake! Eat the cupcake! For a moment, Pinkie Pie looked startled just to see Rainbow Dash in front of her, a dazed look crossing her face. Then her eyes fell on the cupcake and grew wide. With squealed joy, she yanked it from the Pegasus and shoved it in her mouth, with a pleasure and licking her lips. Wow! Thanks, Dashy! She cried. That was yummy. I haven't had a cupcake in like forever. I totally needed one. Rainbow Dash grinned. Looking triumphant, Mr. and Mrs. Cake said that you like to get this sometimes when you don't have enough sugar. And then you start slowing down, watching grass grow and stuff like that. And all it takes is to snap you out as a cupcake, she explained with satisfaction. So you're good now? Back to normal? Yeah-huh. Thanks again for the cupcake, Pinkie cried, though a mouthful of pastry beaming. Red velvet is my favorite flavor right now. Oh my gosh, this is so good. You should eat one too. We should have a cupcake party. Yup, back to normal, Rainbow Dash declared, clapping Pinkie on the shoulder with a wing and steering her towards the door. Come on, I think the pet fumes are getting to me. Cool, let's go Tank and Gummy wrestled or something. Yay! And so the two friends left chatting comfortably as they waltzed past Twilight, as though they'd forgotten the unicorn was even there. With a sigh, Twilight turned to follow them out. Maybe Pinkie thought, munching on the unexpected cupcake. Maybe that was what life was all about. In the end, accepting loss and change, and finding a way to work around it, and move on. Maybe life was not about letting tragedies bog you down, and cause you to forget the little things that made life truly shine. Maybe life was about those small pleasures, those tiny instances of joy, and not so much about the bad things. Maybe that was the secret to true happiness. And so Pinkie exited the formerly orange room with no lingering regrets, not looking back to what she'd left behind once. Instead, choosing to only look forward to the bright future ahead, to friends, to delicious, tasty cupcakes with sprinkles. Oh. Seeing the expression on the beautiful on Pinkie Pie's face, Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes and sighed. You're so weird, she muttered. Well, that is the end of the story, and I have to say, it was quite beautiful. I don't know how I kept myself from crying. It was just magnificently beautiful. Well, I have nothing else to say now, so I'll leave you with this story. Goodbye, and that is all. Goodbye.